Are you here to better understand how Ruben Amorim can fix Rasmus Højlund? Well, congratulations, you are in the right place. Without any further ado, let's analyze. All right, so before we fix Rasmus Højlund, we first have to identify the problem. And in order for us to identify the problem, we first need to understand who Rasmus Højlund is, what's his modus operandi, and also what kind of environment does he thrive in. And that's exactly what I'm going to do in this video analysis segment. So we're going to analyze some of his goals at Manchester United to understand in what kind of system does he thrive. So the first goal is actually in my top 3 favorite Rasmus Højlund goals, a goal against Brentford. Here what we have is Bruno Fernandes. Obviously, I could not really catch the right frame, the right sequence, but he was looking at Rasmus Højlund, who is right behind him, to make sure that he's in the right position. Bruno Fernandes and Christian Eriksen are key in the sequence to Rasmus Højlund scoring the goal, because the moment Christian Eriksen gets the ball, he only wants to do one thing, and it's to create that verticality. Eriksen and Bruno Fernandes are some of the few, probably Mason Mount, right? Are some of the few players in this Manchester United team who play these penetrating vertical passes. So that's step 1. Eriksen going for this penetrating vertical pass towards Bruno Fernandes. Step 2 is, of course, Højlund, who identifies this space. So he starts his run. And Bruno Fernandes, as I said earlier, is actually aware of where Rasmus Højlund is and what kind of move is he going to make. And then here, Bruno Fernandes does what Bruno Fernandes does with that amazing flick. A player of flair, technique, and vision. And then now, Rasmus Højlund, with his physical attributes and technical attribute, that was a beautiful chip, he goes on to score his goal. By the way, this chipped finish is also a trademark Rasmus Højlund finish. Now, in order for me to further drive the point that I'm trying to make across, let's look at another sequence. This was against Vitória Plzeň in the Europa League. And so everybody's focused on this area. This is the congested area. They think that Bruno Fernandes is going to go for a long ball into the far post for a tall center back, to just square it into the central areas. But no, what Bruno Fernandes identifies here is this space right here. There is a hole in the opposition's defense. And so now him and Rasmus Højlund, they're having a kind of understanding. They're looking at each other. Rasmus Højlund kind of guesses what Bruno Fernandes wants to do. But here, before we talk about Rasmus Højlund scoring, what really enabled him to score in this sequence is, first of all, the fact that Bruno Fernandes understood him and he played quickly, taking everyone by surprise, but also the quality of the pass. Notice how this was not a slow chipped ball towards Rasmus Højlund's chest or his head. No, it was actually quite a fast, powerful pass into his path, directing him or positioning him in a position where he can shoot with his left foot. So here, Rasmus Højlund can use his attributes, which is his size, his ability to, hold up the defender, and then his shooting ability and finishing with the left foot. Here's another sequence. This was against Galatasaray. Obviously, this goal didn't count because Højlund was a little bit offside, but the point stays the same. And here, Mason Mount is going to do exactly what is needed. Look, he doesn't even waste time controlling the ball, because you see that with the young players, the Garnachos, the Mainus, and the Amads. They always control the ball, and then they start thinking about, okay, now that I have controlled the ball, what am I going to do with it? But that's already too late. Sometimes, especially in the final third, you have to play quick. You have to know what you're going to do with the ball before you receive it. And then here, Mason Mount is doing exactly that. And that puts Højlund in a situation where he can collect the ball with a yard or two of space. And then Højlund does what Højlund does. He cuts on his left foot and then just smashes the ball into the net. And just a quick note here on Mason Mount. I think that had we gotten the Mason Mount from Chelsea, the Mason Mount I thought we were going to get, there could have made a big difference to the results and performances of Manchester United these past 2 seasons. Unfortunately, that didn't work out the way it's supposed to be. But the point that I'm trying to get at here is that Rasmus Højlund thrives a lot when he's playing around people who play fast, sharp, incisive football that doesn't let the opposition position themselves. Okay, it takes the opposition by surprise. Therefore, it puts Højlund in a situation where he can score goals. There's another thing about Rasmus Højlund that we are not using enough, and it's his ability to attack spaces. When I made my video about Rasmus Højlund back in February, before we signed him, I highlighted a sequence from a game between Atalanta and Lazio, where the guy, he looked like Michael Schumacher, just driving, cutting through that Lazio defense. And I was like, a guy this big cannot possibly be this fast. And here in this goal against Galatasaray, also, if you remember that preseason goal against Arsenal, he's showing that demonic speed that he has. And again, that trademark chipped finish that he did against Brentford, does it again. He's very comfortable with those chipped finishes. But what I'm trying to say here is that we are not actually using this attribute that Rasmus Højlund has because we seldom play any through balls. We barely play any balls into space. And when we do that, it's usually in the wide areas where usually a player like Garnacho or Amad Diallo, they find themselves in front of 2 or 3 opposition players. But we have to play through the middle to maximize the opportunities that Rasmus Højlund gets in these kind of scenarios, because I think that in the Premier League, he could actually smash a lot of defenses using this method of play. Now I'm going to show you 3 Rasmus Højlund that look like a carbon copy of one another. And if a striker can score 3 identical goals, you know that that's a pattern of play. You know that that's a vintage trademark Rasmus Højlund goal. So this was against West Ham. He receives the ball in this area, right in front of this the box right here through the middle. This is, you know, the most vital zone or area on a football pitch. And so he likes to drop in and receive the ball so he can turn on the defenders. Here, Garnacho does well because by making this move, he's actually making sure that the West Ham players are a little bit more conservative with how they press Højlund. So it gives Højlund enough time to start doing what he does best, which is this fake shot with his left foot and then into his right foot. And that's a beautiful finish. Here again, against Newcastle. Again, I want to highlight the role of Bruno Fernandes because the role of these attacking players is extremely important because here, the quality of the pass, see that? Between Joe Linton's legs is good. Like if he missed that pass, that's it, there would have been no Højlund goal. But because that pass was executed perfectly, Højlund again finds himself in this situation, similar to that situation against West Ham. And here he can do what he does best. Again, fake shot with the left and then into the right foot, his weaker foot, and that's a beautiful finish. Absolutely unstoppable. And this was against Brighton. And again, look at this. This Christian Eriksen's role here is extremely important. So Højlund towards Eriksen. Look at that. Eriksen does not even control the ball. He keeps the tempo high. And this is it's extremely subtle. And yet it makes a huge difference in whether Højlund scores or not. So now basically takes this player, I think that's Lewis Dunk, by the way, out of position. So now he has one player to dribble. There you go. Again, like just cut in on his right foot from the left. And then 1v1 again in this situation. He knows that this is the space where he wants to be. So again, same thing. Fake shot and then Captain Tsubasa style finish into the net. This is a trademark Højlund goal. So we need to get him the ball in those areas, you know, through the middle, but not when everything is congested. Give him the ball early so he can turn and run at defenders, because when he does that, he is one of the most dangerous players in the Premier League currently. And then, of course, we signed the number 9. So for him to be a fox in a box. And I think that Højlund's ability in the box is extremely underrated. This goal against Aston Villa, which was extremely important since, of course, it allowed us to win the game after going down 2-0 against Aston Villa at Old Trafford, was amazing. I mean, look at the finish and the reaction speed. He reacted much faster than everyone. And again, we see that repeated against Bodø Glimt this season. But before that, I also want to highlight one of the problems. So here, Ugarte does great. He wins the ball in this half space, so it allows us an opportunity to counterattack the defense when they are not organized. Look at Højlund's positioning. Again, coming in, just stepping a couple of yards back. He is in a good position right here. He is a few yards away from the nearest players. So here what could have happened? If Ugarte had played this ball, what I would have done, had I been Højlund, is to just let the ball go across me so that I can shoot and curl it with the left foot, like this, into the top corner right here. Or Ugarte would actually dribble towards the byline, dragging this player towards him, and then cut back towards Højlund in this area, who, as we know, can actually finish with his supposedly weaker right foot. But here, Ugarte, this is what I'm talking about. Again, that's just, come on. Why? So, of course, this prevented Højlund from scoring this goal. Ugarte should have done better. And this is what I'm talking about. Like, can Højlund, or should he do better with his first touch, hold up play and positioning? Sure, he definitely needs to refine that. But he's still young, guys. He's 20. Guys, he's still got acne on his face. What do you expect? Okay, so yes, he can do better, but we have to be patient with that. But also, the more senior players who play around him need to also do better with the kinds of balls that they deliver to him. But fortunately for us in this game, because of course we were, 2-1 down against Bodø Glimt, is that Mazraoui is going to step in to save the day. So he intercepts the ball. And now notice how Højlund is going to start moving into a position, okay? Because as a striker, he does have that killer instinct. So he's trying to identify what would be the best area where he can hurt the opposition the most. And so he identifies this space, running into the far post area right here. Mazraoui finds him. And then what I love about this is highly so underrated. It's just that control with his left foot and then into his right foot. He doesn't have much space to actually generate much power. It's an awkward position, so he really, the odds of him just hitting the target are extremely low, but he places it into the side netting. That's an amazing finish. All right, so all of this is great, but let's not stop here. Let's add a data dimension to this analysis. All right, so first let me explain the data spread that I have here on my data analysis software. Basically, I am comparing Højlund to the other 60 million plus strikers over the past 3 seasons. So basically, the strikers that were purchased by their teams for 60 million euros or more since 2001. So as you can see, we have the likes of Isaac, Kolo Muani, Højlund, of course, Havertz, Richarlison, Vlahovic, etc. And I am comparing them here according to their minutes per goal. So this shows us, how long a player has to wait between goals. So in effect, it is the extent of the goal droughts that each player goes through. And then here, to me, one extremely important piece of data, which is the goals per shot, because this shows us how efficient a player is with the few chances that he gets. And here what we see is that, yes, among these players, Højlund is the one that waits longest between goals. Okay, so he goes into longer goal droughts than the others. A player like Isaac, for example, who has been doing really well for Newcastle, scores much more frequently than all of the others. However, as you can see, Højlund is actually positioned quite high when it comes to goals per shot. What this shows us, in fact, Højlund's goal per shot is at 0.23. So every 4 shots that he has, he scores a goal. This is actually quite efficient. So what this tells us is that while Højlund doesn't score a lot, he actually scores most of the few chances that he gets. That means that this is an extremely efficient and extremely effective player. In fact, I don't have the numbers of shots here, but if we compare him to someone like Nunez, who has a goals per shot of 0.11, that means with Darwin Nunez from Liverpool, every 10 shots he gets, he scores once. While Højlund, every 4 shots he gets, he scores once. So obviously Højlund is 2.5 times more effective than Nunez is. In effect, what this means is that if you took Højlund and had him trade places, like that Eddie Murphy movie with Darwin Nunez, Højlund playing for Liverpool, Nunez playing for Manchester United, what you get is this, and I'm ready to bet my house on it, is that Højlund would easily be a 20-25 goals a season striker, while Darwin Nunez would look even more lost, even more out of his depth at Manchester United than he does at Liverpool. So again, this supports the video analysis that I showed you earlier in just saying that if we can actually get Højlund the right type of service at the right time in the right areas, we do have potentially a 20-25 goal a season striker. I also want to add that Rasmus Højlund is a victim of misprofiling because of his size. A lot of people compare him to players like Zlatan Ibrahimovic or Lukaku. And so they talk a lot about his hold-up play and using him as a target man. Whereas I think that Højlund is actually more of a goal poacher or a player who actually plays in behind the line. He's got insane speed and amazing finishing. And so we are not really playing to his strengths. And here, let me just draw your attention to something that I focused on when I made my latest Kobbie Mainoo video, where I talked about what Ruben Amorim said in the post-match press conference when he played Kobbie Mainoo as a 10, when he said, I am in the process of understanding my players. And I think that Ruben Amorim right now is still trying to use Xerxes and Højlund the way he used Gyökeres, but there are no Gyökeres. Victor Gyökeres is different. And so I think that the more Ruben Amorim understands Højlund, the more he's going to start playing to his strengths. And how do you do that? Well, first of all, one of the strategies we could do is changing the system. So the current Ruben Amorim system suffers from a lack of experience in the forward areas. You have the likes of Ahmad, Garnacho, and Kobbie Mainoo alongside Højlund. All 4 of them, amazing talents, highly promising, but they are not experienced right now to play that fast, incisive football, the way I showed you in the sequences with the likes of Eriksen, Bruno Fernandes, and Mason Mount, right? But how do we fix that? Okay, so you could change the system where you play the likes of Eriksen and Bruno Fernandes further upfield, but then who do you play alongside Ugarte? And then certain players like Garnacho and Kobbie Mainoo will have to be in the bench. However, I think that with players like Bruno Fernandes, Christian Eriksen playing more advanced, and then the pace of Patrick Dorgu and Amad Diallo on the wings could potentially get more out of Højlund than the current way we play. But guys, I'm going to be honest. I think that Ruben Amorim's hands are tied because this squad is simply not good enough, not only in terms of quality, but also in terms of depth and in terms of variety of player profiles. He cannot really shake things up a lot. So more likely than not, we are not going to see the best out of Rasmus Højlund until we are able to fix our limitations as far as our squad is concerned with the transfer market. We need to bring in attackers that are very good technically, that have great vision, that can play quick, incisive football, playing between the lines, play those through balls. Think of players like Desiré Doué or Florian Wirtz or Phil Foden, okay? These kind of players, highly technical, highly creative. When they hold on to the ball, it's really hard to get it out of them, and they can really pass the ball through the eye of the needle. So I hope that you've enjoyed this tactical analysis video. Let me know in the comment section below whether you actually agree with my takes, whether you have an alternative view on how we can fix Rasmus Højlund. I know some of you might say, well, he's simply not good enough. But guys, he's a 70 million pound asset. We cannot just sell him. It's too soon, okay? So we have to find a way to make him work. So anyway, just let me know what you think in the comment section below. Until next time, cheers.